You are listening to The Weekly Wager with the Doctor and Uncle B on the iBet Networks. How you doing, Uncle B?
Happy Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving week. And, we have a bunch of turkeys on Thanksgiving Day in the NFL. I'm not so sure it's the same deal in college where we have rivalry week, and there are some interesting games we can talk about. Let's talk a little bit about some news. So going into the Bears Thursday game against Detroit, the Bears are, reported that Nagy is going to be fired. The Bears have never fired a coach during the season. What do you think about that? And then they're going to have him kind of as a lame duck coach for one last game. How does that make any sense?
It'd be interesting sometimes to be a fly on a wall inside the locker room or decision-making room. I'm surprised. It kind of seems similar like the Patterson deal down there at TCU. He didn't want to stay around, but it's interesting that Nagy wants to stay around.
I agree. I mean, if you're going into that game, do your players just look at you and feel sorry for you?
Well, if they do, they might have a shot to win. They're playing Detroit.
Oh, so, hey, we got another firing. So we had the Brady game on Monday night against kind of a lame duck Giants offense. And then after that game, we had another coach get fired. This time, the offensive coordinator, old Dallas head coach Jason Garrett, who may not. This might be him being out of the league after this. I don't. What are your thoughts on Jason Garrett?
I think where they're at right now. A lot of these decisions could have a lot to do with someone saving their own butt. I think we can look at that at Nebraska with Frost, and he got rid of his whole offensive crew, I think, to save himself. So
that happens sometimes for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff that's going on, in a way, it makes sense. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, this is professional, and you're accountable to basically whether you win or lose, and it's very difficult to win in the NFL. And these folks all of a sudden have a job, then they don't. They're moving their families around. It's not an easy gig.
What about? I did see someone on Monday. So another dud game was the Brady was that Giants game, Giants and Bucks on Monday night. I did see someone suggest the prop bet with first team to score the first touchdown was Tampa Bay, which was actually an interesting prop bet, thinking Brady would be more motivated. Do you think he's back after that game, or is that just a lame duck Giants team?
I think it was a good spot. One man's trash is another man's treasure. I'm never really interested in large spreads, but I think that set up well for Tampa Bay. They've lost two. Their head coach told them that they're not very bright. And then you have the best quarterback of all time. So that game made sense. We hammered it pretty hard, a group of us. We posted that game. So that was a lot of fun. Made sense to me that it's, at the end of the day, it's still a good football team. Right, and that's a very good quarterback, and their head coach is smart on how he goes about challenging folks. I'm sure
he's a great coach. He's done a lot with think about what Arizona was always a loser, and that guy turned that around and made that a Super Bowl team.
No doubt.
And I would say Arians great, probably from those legacy days from being with the Steelers. Maybe learned a lot under Cowher and the guys they had over at the Steelers. Okay, but let's get into college football a little bit. So we got a big week. It's rivalry weekend, so a lot of interesting games. Let's go look at the BCS right now, because we did talk about that, that section where you wanted to talk about, what is it, veins? What do you call that, Uncle B?
Well, we get on to things. We get on to blood veins, that lead to the next game or the following week. And as you start to be right, you can get on a roll with one particular team or one particular conference. Where they lead to future bets, successful bets.
Is that a strategy for you sometimes when you're laying out games you want to bet on? Do you stay sometimes? Like, I will bet. Quite frankly, I'll bet the Packers a lot, only because I feel like it's the team that I know the best. I know a lot of the teams, but I feel like if you know a conference, you probably know what to look at, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say yes, absolutely. That's the main source or the main feed of plays in college football is through blood veins. Whereas in the NFL, it's really week to week. Sometimes it's day to day with the NFL.
Absolutely. A lot of changes in the NFL week to week going on in the NFL. But let's look at college really quick. We still have 3 undefeated teams. We still have Georgia at 10-0, We have Cincinnati at 10-0, and then we have no one's talking about University of Texas and San Antonio. Are any of those, as they scoreboard watch, any of those teams? And what we're going to do this week, just for the listener, is we're going to actually preview a college game on Thursday. We're going to talk a little bit about the college games, but we're going to come back and do a show on Friday to talk about the weekend action. But do any of those teams, are they in interesting positions? Any of those teams coming into this week, the undefeated teams?
Yeah, one of them falls into the category. I have an interesting approach. Last week we've discussed a little bit about A, B's, and C's, and I'm breaking this week's approach down in college football. I think it can be highly profitable, but there's a way that depending on what sort of spectrum of a bettor you are, let's say 1 being the most conservative of wagers, all the way to 10 being the hair on fire gambler, ready to rock and roll parlay type of person. If we lay out these games this week in college football, there's a little bit, it's almost like a potluck Thanksgiving. You can partake in this from any angle, okay? And so, yes, one of them that falls into that category is Cincinnati. Now, keep in mind, I've got 11 games right now currently that I'm looking at, and 10 of them are underdogs that I believe have a better than average shot, let's say, higher probability of winning outright. Now, one of those 11, which what I would like to do is whittle this down to 7, so I have some work to do between now and Saturday, but one that is not an underdog that I like quite a bit is Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And I think that
let's talk about that game. Now, Mississippi State, good team, not scoring quite as they had been earlier in the year. And,
look at recent trends, and there's a lot of different websites that you can go to pull these things up, this information. But I like to, especially right now, I like to start looking at not only the whole scope of work, but maybe, let's say, the last 3 weeks.
So let's set this game up a little bit, okay? Mississippi at Mississippi State. It's a 7:30 game on Eastern time, so 4:30 for Pacific on Thursday. Rivalry game, of course. Mississippi 9-2 this year, 6-4 against the spread, 6-4-1 against the spread. Mississippi State favored by 2, 7-4 against the spread. So what are you seeing here?
Well, I had some phone calls on this game today, and it's interesting. There's a bit of an argument of where this line might have opened. There's some that are saying that the line opened up with Mississippi State, and there's others saying that the line opened up with Mississippi, both the same number, potentially 2. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's correct. If I look at a power ranking, if you take some home field advantage into account, Mississippi State is a pick 'em to favored by 1. Okay? That's just flat. That's just a flat number. If Mississippi State opened as the favorite, if Ole Miss opened as the favorite, then it's been bet to Mississippi State. I currently have Mississippi State minus 2.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing right now too. So the line opened at Mississippi State minus 1.5, moved a little bit on Monday to minus 0.5 point, back to 1.5, now to 2.5. So there's been an interesting movement on this. I mean, that's it. What do you consider with that movement? Anything there? And you have two great quarterbacks in this game too. The over under on this is a big number. It's in the 60s, I think it is.
Yeah, and it's actually moved, which makes sense. Anytime we see something in college football where it quickly goes 3 points, then respected money hit the over on that. Because look at the number. We're at 60.5 opening, and I see us sitting at 64, a potential 64.5 out there. That's about a field goal and maybe hedging a field goal and 0.5 point to the over. So the way I break down odds, if you're now coming into this game on Thursday and you just opened the newspaper, we don't have them anymore, but let's say you just opened.
Right, go find one.
Right, and you're interested in the over, this is where you need to be educated and realize that they've got 3 points on you. Now, you may be right on the over, but those that were able to obtain that prior to the 3,
At
See what
50,
I'm
59, maybe early in the week. That must have been maybe a Sunday line, probably.
Well, I would think 60 over 63, over 63 and a half, over 62 and a half is a big number.
Now
And
these
now
guys,
we're
this is probably going to be. I would say this is definitively going to be the best game on Thursday. I mean, when you take into account the NFL games. I mean, if the NFL games are turkeys, and we'll see maybe the Buffalo New Orleans game will deliver, but those teams are going in different directions and have some issues. But this is probably the best watching game anyway. So it's probably worth a wager just to watch it and make it more interesting.
Yeah, let's see if we can't come out with an ABC for the day, right? So, um, if I was to try and go for a C, okay, I think New Orleans on Sunday night. I think that's going to be the tout type pick. You're getting an underdog number.
New Orleans
That game,
on Thursday night, you should say.
yeah,
So
Thursday
let's
night.
let's drop it in here. The weekly wager. So let's go with the weekend games. Well, you want to finish up the college game, and then we can go ABC on these as kind of
Yeah,
to set it
that
up.
would be if I'm looking for the game on Turkey Day. I'm going to go. I like Mississippi State. Um, I think this game sets up perfectly for the Pirate, Mr. Leach. These are exactly the situations. We are at the end of the season here in college football, and some teams, their hopes and dreams are alive. Some teams, all the goals and aspirations that they wanted at the beginning of the season, they realize that's not going to happen. They may be getting a bowl that they really didn't want. We have some teams that are bowl hopeful, but then we also have some teams that I think down near, let's say, the last 2-3 games of the season, maybe they found something. They have new goals in place. They have a new coach in place. They have a new offense in place. And we have a lot of examples of that. So when you're looking for motivation, a motivation and a good head coach in the last week of the season who can rah-rah, cheerlead his kids into believing all sorts of things, there's no one better than Leach and the Pirate. He's probably got some story. Oh, who knows what he's given them, but I like that. I like a veteran coach that understands the season. I think Lane Kiffin kind of shoots from the hip, and he's coming in there into Mississippi State. Can't trust these days with these websites where the money truly is going. I mean, I saw a pretty good argument about this, Jeffrey, is why would they post information that's really true? Isn't that kind of information
defeats the point, the purpose of that, right?
right? But if we want to believe some of the places that folks might look at, it seems to me that Lane Kiffin is taking on the public money, and it seems to me that sharp money has played the Pirate, and that's the position I'm going to take. So
well, you got it. It's 59% of the money is on Mississippi right now, and 41% on Mississippi State. So the pick in from Uncle B this week in college football on Thursday, Mississippi State. So let's go over to like the NFL schedule, which is not anywhere near as enticing as that Thursday game. But let's take a look at these games. So we have the morning game, which I got to be honest, I'm going to go play tennis in the morning on Thanksgiving because this game, unlike where we used to go play football when I was in Chicago, I'm a little bit older and can't probably make it back from a football game, but I'm going to play some tennis instead of watching this Chicago-Detroit game. How do you view this one? I mean, you have Matt Nagy about to get fired. You have Jared Goff playing. So it sticks with me, that's Stafford, but you have Jared Goff. They haven't won. They're 0-9 on the year. The Bears are 3-7. The developing quarterback with a coach headed out the door. It's not a great game to pick. Is this one you would maybe sit out?
Well, tennis is a great idea, but
okay.
But I'll tell you why. Folks don't realize it, but in my opinion, this is the most important game of the week. Because for me, looking at lines and reading lines, and we've talked about mirror games and some other things in the NFL, this is going to be the beginning of the script for the week, so to speak. Okay? And when I look at where the lines are set, where the lines have moved, where the betting's going, we have 4, maybe 5 games that are very similar in how they approach them. And so, like we did last week, the telling game, the most important game, although I said I wouldn't wager it, is the same as the Chicago-Detroit. was Green Bay, Minnesota. That starts to tell us the story about the rest of the day. That's what this game's going to do early. So the only thing that we're interested in, I could care less who's on the field. What I want to know is what is the spread go off at? What's the final number? And then what is the final outcome of this game? Because I'm gonna deem a lot of information from that.
And then that's going to set up for our Friday show where we can kind of see how the mirror plays out and see what it tells you about the predictions for the weekend games, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And as we're working together, we just started doing this. I think by us having a day and then be able to read it, it kind of shows how the line's important, and it helps us kind of get a rhythm. It's not easy to pick a winner in the NFL on Tuesday or Wednesday night. It really isn't.
And that reminds me, I kind of want to just bring something up really quickly to diverge a little bit. I don't know if you saw this, but did you see that Fox, the Fox News channel, the Fox company is going into business in football in terms of the USFL coming back. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, so it's really new. It's very new news. And the season's going to pick up right after kind of the Super Bowl ends towards the spring. So they're going to have spring football. It's going to be a 10-game season. I believe there's 8 teams in it. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of wagering opens on that. But that is the move, right? To have more things to wager on. So that'll be interesting if we could. I don't know how we're going to follow those games yet when we start to know those players, but we'll have to take a look at that. But I wondered if you had seen that or had talked about that. Why don't you should talk to one of your guys about that and see what their interest level is going to be in that.
Hey, the thing I did see, and maybe you know a little bit about this. I know you're a golfer, and supposedly they've tried this before in the Emirates, or I believe it's in the Emirates, and they're trying to get a alternative to the PGA, like for real, going. You heard
really?
anything?
No, I haven't really followed that story very much, but I will take a look at it. That is an interesting maneuver that could be moving towards that for sure.
Well, they feel as if it can be done because it comes down to prize money, and I'm trying to.
They can raise it, no problem.
I'm trying to think of the turn. Oh, it's the Phoenix Open. Phil Mickelson is there. He's their hometown. That's an important figure to get for that Phoenix Open. Really important, and they lost him 2 years ago. My understanding is to a $1.5 million payout to go over to the Emirates and play. So it's a possibility.
Interesting. Let's get back to NFL. And so Chicago, Detroit, we're not even looking at that as a play. Let's go to the next game, which will be the 4:30 Eastern game, the Vegas Raiders against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, transitionally, and look what's happened to the Raiders again. They're kind of falling apart. They looked like they were moving in the right direction with all the stuff with Ruggs, with losing Gruden. But now the last couple games, they've just looked lost. And record 5-5, 4-6 against the spread. Not looking great at a Dallas team that's, again, directionally, they're 7-3, but they've been great against the spread. They're 8-2 against the spread. Dallas favored by up to 7.5 right now. That seems to be a number that is maybe too much to swallow. What are you thinking on this, Uncle B?
Well, think about the parity in the NFL. We're looking at a team with the Las Vegas Raiders that have been technically blown out against the spread 2 in a row at home, and they're 5-5.
Right.
I mean, that's a sign of a bad team, but 5-5 is not a sign of a bad team. So it's very counterintuitive, and one would think that they would have been a strong play coming off a technical blowout at home last week. I think they caught Cincinnati, with that bye. That supports a little bit there. But
well, then if you're going to lead towards anyone in these short week games, I mean, the home team does get that extra day of practice. It's a short week. Dallas used to being home on a Thursday, Thanksgiving. The same way, if anybody's looking at Detroit, I mean, they're going to have the same advantage, and that is their game. And there's a fallacy out there that Detroit wins that game a lot. I think over the years they're barely 500 in that, and that's partially because that franchise is poor. But that is this extra day at home is a big factor. We talked about that before. So maybe Dallas, if you're looking, do you have a pick on this game?
If I had to.
So is this do you have actually like one A pick for the week for Thursday and then just 2 C's? So there's no B this week? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, Mississippi State.
We'll break
But
that down.
I
We're gonna
tell
get
you.
you. Got to let me get to it, Uncle B. But
So how about we trust lines makers are going to do their job this week? Okay.
yeah,
So if we trust lines makers are going to do their job this week, this number should be 7, and we're seeing a 7.5. We have to think that that half is the hook that they need to feel confident because they have to know Dallas money is coming from America. It's coming heavy. You got a team in the Raiders that might, quite frankly, might need to get the heck out of town and go play
which
football,
which town, by the way?
right?
Yeah,
Uh, and so I would take Vegas here. I would.
yeah. I know the half is intriguing, right? I mean, the half makes this a little bit different for me. If I look at that, it feels a little heavy.
Well, I can tell you, if I'm a bookmaker, I want Vegas.
Yeah, it's about. It looks like 62% of the money's on Dallas right now.
Mm.
So let's
You
go to
know,
our let's go to
real
the let's go.
something that
What were you
something
gonna
that
say?
something that bit us with Dallas, and something to keep in mind last week. We had Dallas as a pick in the NFL, and Sunday morning when we get our injury updates, we start to see we have some critical components out for Dallas. So I'm assuming that they wouldn't fix that real quick at this point in the season. So it might be another reason to lean towards Vegas.
Well, they have a couple issues at wide receiver. So that's a key issue, where, they have essentially one of their receivers is out with COVID. So that's kind of Amari Cooper tested positive for COVID. And the other younger wide receiver they have, I'm trying to think of his name right now. He's also potentially out because he was in the concussion protocol. So they're kind of in some trouble there. CeeDee Lamb, I'm sorry, is the other guy. CeeDee Lamb is kind of an iffy play as well. So you look at what Dallas is going to do, you would have to think this might be an interesting underplay. And
Yeah.
that just came to mind right now. But when I think about it, if CeeDee Lamb's out, and if Cooper, and we know that Cooper's going to be out because of COVID, so we're going to have a lot of Ezekiel Elliott, and we're going to have a lot of running game, and we're going to have a lot of tight end play. I'm thinking this could be a low-scoring game, and generally, like in this short week, there's not a lot of installs for offensive game plan. So the over/under at 51.5, that might be kind of interesting. Actually, the over/under opened at 50.5. Going over under 51.5 might be a more interesting bet than betting either one of these guys. But we're definitely in the C class of picks in this one. Let's move on to the Buffalo New Orleans game, which is going to be the late game, 8:20 Eastern start. You have Buffalo, who's 6-4, who was really at the beginning of the year, everyone was talking about this being a Super Bowl team, and now not looking so. And then you have the Saints, who, all kinds of quarterback problems and lots of issues. A lot of money's going on Buffalo to start this game. They're 62%. Where's the money at? And you have New Orleans +6 at home. Home dog +6 on a short week. What do you think about this one? Kind of interesting.
Well, let's just listen to the story. I mean, in a way, we just heard it a little bit, right? So here are some of the things that we're going to hear from our fans on TV, on the NFL shows. We're going to hear about Buffalo not living up to the hype. We're going to hear about New England taking over Buffalo for the division. We're going to hear about New Orleans and how well they played on Thanksgiving, I believe. Check that. Sometimes I come across these things with my memory. If I say check it, I'm talking to everybody out there to follow up, make sure that I'm accurate. But I believe New Orleans played real well on Thanksgiving. Was it 2 years ago?
I'll have to take a look at that.
Yep, take a look. And I think that'll be a story. And so, the line should be a little shorter than this. So the question that I would ask is, why did they open up Buffalo by more, knowing that it's going to be a nice little glamour pick on Sunday night is going to be New Orleans, just based on the way Buffalo's playing. And the other thing that I would look at is if we look at different. You can look for 2 or 3 of your top power rankings, and I bet you that they have Buffalo 2, 3, or 4. So I say let's go opposite of the story. Let's lay the wood with Buffalo
So
on
you're
the
gonna
road.
go with Buffalo on the road. So this actually has there's a lot of line movement in this game, by the way.
Yeah.
This thing has moved a lot. It started at Buffalo -3. and it's moved, and it just kept moving. I mean, it's moved up to where it's now 6. So you think this line is in play? Is this a rating game for you? Let's break them down now. Let's break out what is. I would say this is a light. It'll be a heavy eating day, but it's a light feasting day for both college and pros on Thursday. So let's break down your C game first. Do you have a C game here, or do you have? Would it be this game? The Buffalo game is your C game?
Yeah, I'll break it down real simple. Okay, so strong gut feel A play, Mississippi State.
Mississippi State.
Okay. Watch, absolutely do not play it. I want to know the outcome, most important game of the week. Chicago and Detroit in the morning. Go play tennis and find out what the score is. Okay. And then our B game is going to be trusting odds makers and believing that that number's too fat on Sunday night and that means something. So B for Buffalo. Let's trust lines makers that is correct on Buffalo. And then Las Vegas will take a technical approach on 2 technical blowouts against the spread, coming back to Dallas and knowing that America's on Dallas and lines makers need Vegas. There you have it. Mississippi State, Vegas, and Buffalo.
There you go. Hey, it's great stuff. We'll see you again on Friday. We're going to have another show. We're going to kind of talk about the mirror games. We're going to preview the weekend. And we'll see you next time on the Weekly Wager with the Doctor and Uncle B on the iBet Networks.